Hello, my name is Sharon Buller, and thank you for joining me today. I'm excited to share a story about me. So, there I was working one morning, and the phone rang in my office. I realized it was my sister, and I quickly picked up the phone. I was so excited to hear from her. You see, she was going to be flying in that day, visiting us for the holidays. She was in Florida, coming up to Connecticut to stay with my husband, myself, and our four small boys who were 6, 4, 3, and 3 at the time. Yes, that's right, twins and all four boys. So there I was, and the phone rang, and I picked it up, and it was my sister. Hello, I'm so excited to see you today. I can't wait till you get here. She said, "That's why I called. I'm not coming." What? What do you mean you're not coming? There was a moment of silence. I was going to kill myself, but I decided to call you instead. Oh my gosh. My brain was on overload, trying to fathom and grasp these words that were echoing in my head. What do you mean? What's going on? What can I do? She said, "I'm okay. I called you." I don't really remember the rest of the conversation, but I remember that she was going to call her husband next, and I called our mom, who was also in Florida, just 2 hours away from her, and they were going to be the immediate support that she needed. Well, the sound of her voice saying what she said to me just echoed in my brain. I couldn't get rid of it, and I just kept thinking, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? I have to help her. I have to save her. And then I remembered. A few months earlier, I had been in a workshop for prayer shawls. It was beautiful, these prayer shawls that were being made. They taught you how to do them, and they taught you the meaning of them. And I thought, that's it. It's a prayer shawl. I can knit her a prayer shawl. So I did just that. I ran out to the store. I went to Michael's. I bought all of the materials that were needed. I brought them home. I laid them out on the floor. I held my hands over them, and I blessed them with prayers before I started this project. And then it was time to start. Now, I remembered casting on. You have to cast the yarn onto the needle. It took me a while, but I finally remembered how to do it. And I cast on, and then it was time for the first row. And as I began to knit, I prayed over every single stitch, over every single row, as I turned and turned, and it grew bigger and bigger. And then there I was. It was 9:30 at night, and I needed to finish this. I was at the point where you were to cast off the last pieces of getting it off of the needle before you decorate it with fringe. And there I was, 9:30 at night, and my mind was blank. I had no idea. How do you cast off? I looked at the time and I thought, who can I call? It's 9:30 at night. I thought, my friend Leslie, my friend from church, she knew how to knit. Surely she could help me. So I hurried up and I called her and I explained what I was doing, and she said, "Cher," she goes, I'm so sorry. She said, "I could show you how to do it." She said, "But I can't walk you through it, not over the phone." And I was so disappointed. I had to finish it. She said, "You know who could help you is Beth." Beth was another member of our congregation, and I knew immediately who she was speaking about. Now, I knew Beth. We weren't real good friends, not like Leslie and I, but I knew her. And so I gladly took the phone number, and I called Beth. And she answered, and I told her what I was doing. Well, Beth was able to help me. she walked me through and talked me through how to cast off each and every stitch. It's so important because as you're casting off, you are literally taking it off of the needle and securing each and every stitch as you go. Beth helped me that night to get the prayer shawl off the needles. The next day, I was able to finish it up. I had the whole family come into the living room and we formed a circle in the floor. We sat around and I opened up the prayer shawl and opened it so that it was touching each and every one of us. We held hands, we closed our eyes, and I said a prayer of blessing, of comfort and protection for my sister. We were all done, and I was able to get that prayer shawl into the mail to my sister, and I knew it would help her. With all that I had done, I knew that it would help her. And then one Sunday morning, I was sitting in church. It was the beginning of the service, and Beth was invited up to the church, the chancel at the front of the sanctuary. And she invited Reverend Margaret J. to join her. Two women that I absolutely love and adore. And there they stood. Beth started to explain how we all knew that Reverend Margaret J. was getting ready to face both surgery and chemotherapy for her breast cancer. Beth was there to present her with a prayer shawl. She turned, she looked at me, and our eyes connected. And she said, many of you may not know this, but this prayer shawl ministry started with a phone call one night from Sharon Buller. The wave of emotions came over me. The tears were streaming down my face. For the last 6 months, I had carried this weight. It was like everything inside of me was flowing out in those tears. You see, I thought that prayer shawl was going to save my sister, and it didn't. And I was mad. I was mad at the prayer shawl. I was mad at God. I was mad at my sister. I was mad at me for being such a fool to believe that a prayer shawl would save my sister. And as those words washed over me and the tears flowed from me, from my very soul, I had the realization God was showing me that God is so much bigger. Like Job, where were you when I created the heavens and the earth? Where was I when I was thinking about knitting this prayer shawl? I was focused on my sister, and yet God had a bigger plan. It was bigger than my sister. It was bigger than saving my sister's life. It was even bigger than the prayer shawl ministry that was started at our congregation with that phone call that evening. It was about God, how big God is, how we each have our place in God's story, God's history, and we are part of it. We are part of that bigger story. It's not about me. That was my realization. It wasn't about my sister. It wasn't about the Shaw ministry. It was about who God is, and that God can work all things for good. It's all about God. Amen.